Call this meeting to order of the Underhill Planning Commission on March 16th. Do we have any public comment?
Yeah.
All right, Andy, take it away.
It's sort of public, but it's sort of, since it didn't get on the agenda. The Natural Resource Inventory and Mapping Committee is looking for additional members from the Planning Commission. We started as a 6-member committee with 3 from Conservation and 3 from us. And now we have 2 from us and maybe soon to be 1 from us and 1 from Conservation Commission and 1 volunteer. So the way this committee is working is it's a temporary committee, and the purpose is really to create an inventory and a map of our natural resources to help us comply with Act 171, which talks about towns needing to identify those significant forest blocks and habitat connectors and take steps to reduce forest fragmentation, enhance forest health, and other essential ecological functions. So for the last few years, we've been just waiting to get funding. And in the meantime, we did a bunch of speaker presentations and workshops that were meant to help residents appreciate what we have in the town. And then last year we were able to contract with Arrowwood Environmental to do phase 1 of the mapping. And a lot of what's in this handout, did you get a handout, Bart?
No.
Oh. The additional pages are from their proposal to us about what they plan to do. So it gives you an idea of the types of data that they're putting together, how they're doing it, and what kind of product they'll end up with. They've done this sort of thing for quite a few towns in Vermont, so they've gotten worked out some of the kinks, and hopefully will give us a good project. So we're hoping to refund this, to get the funding for recontracting with them for this summer to do the verification in the field, and our committee would act as the go-between between landowners and Arrowwood to make sure we get permission on private lands, that sort of thing. And once completed, they would create what would be a draft map, which then our committee would look at and try to come up with recommendations for where we think the most significant or valuable natural resources are. And then once that's done, it would come back to the Planning Commission and the Conservation Commission, and ultimately the Select Board to approve this map, and we would do public outreach on it. So the committee is involved in parts of all of that aspect. Yeah, we meet only once a month, and we may have additional stuff this summer, but it's very interesting and rewarding. And Val is our current chair. Maybe you have additional things to talk to add.
I'm not sure what you spoke about. I'm sure you covered everything, Sandy.
Yeah.
So you're looking for 2 people from the Planning Commission.
That would be helpful, yeah.
Well, if anyone, I don't know if anyone is interested, reach out to Sandy.
And Val.
I'm interested.
Awesome.
Oh, good.
Cool.
I don't know if I can work it in, but I'm interested. So.
How long, like, is it another whole year?
Yeah, I think it would be another whole year.
And I think what dovetails into this conversation, probably mentioning Val, is
leaving.
I don't want to speak for you, Val, but Val is unfortunately leaving us. I can turn it over to, is today your last meeting?
Well, that really depends on, I know I saw the email that there are some new commissioners waiting to come in. So,
Boris is actually here tonight to interview. Yeah.
so our last day in Underhill is April 15th. So this could be my last meeting, or I could stay on till the end of March, whatever makes most sense for the smooth transition.
Well, thank you, Val. That's super nice of you. I think we can function. I mean, I obviously moving is chaotic, so I think we can.
No, we can't.
I think if today was your last meeting and you had time to focus on moving, then we would be just fine on a quorum. So thank you. And then the other thing Sandy mentioned to me on an email, just to throw it out to everyone, is I know Kale obviously doesn't make it very often, so I think Kale would be happy to step off the planning commission. So, and Sandy was interested in maybe, which I totally agree with, maybe we should, if Kale does want to step down, which I suspect he will, we can try to get a little more diversity, particularly with Val stepping down. If anyone has a woman in town who's interested in serving, that would probably be good. Otherwise it's gonna be all guys and Lisa and Sandy, and that's no pressure. I hesitated to say it, but we did talk about it.
She has experience.
Well, reach out to Sandy, please, if anyone else is interested. We'll miss you, Val. Thank you for having
Likewise.
me.
Yeah.
What town are you moving to?
Well, that's yet to be determined, but we would like to land in Peru.
Oh. Nice, in Manchester. Cool.
Exciting. Well, the other addition to the,
Oh, sorry, I think, Mike, did you want to say something?
oh, sorry.
Yeah, if this is the right time for further public comment.
Absolutely.
All right, yeah, thank you. Thank you for having a public comment at the beginning of the meeting, since I won't be able to stay for the whole thing. But this does stem from a conversation I had with Nick some time back, asking about how permits are handled when properties are sold here in the town center. So I live in the town center. I have a business, but I also watch the others that are around, and there has been some turnover lately, right? The First Step Print Shop, the Poorhouse Pies, and now I didn't know it when we were having this conversation, Nick, but now Gert's Hairstyles is for sale. Well, if
Yes.
all the permits here are of a conditional use and tied to the owner of the building, it seems like it'd be very tricky to transition. Like if it's a business type property, let's say like Gert's Hair, it would be hard to be of interest to another investor if they would have to buy the property first and then apply for the permit. So I don't know if this is the right, forum just to consider some of these questions, I guess, when planning for the town center.
Thanks for the question and for attending, Mike. I was unaware of this as an issue, just as an issue. And B, Nick, do you know, is that how it works?
So the question is,
Or is this something we need to address?
the question is, sorry, I was attending to some other business, so I may have missed the details of it, but let me just confirm. The question is whether or not someone who is currently selling a property can also, anyone can apply for a zoning permit for that property being sold.
Oh, basically.
Yes, I mean.
Yeah, in essence. What I'd like to see, I guess, let's say, is like maybe a positive goal would be is that there's some continuity and some attractiveness to, business or, continuing use of the same sort in the town center. Because let's say the alternative is kind of scary to me. Let's say, if, Phil's interested in selling the store and, so on and so forth, that the town center could evaporate very quickly if no one is in the market to purchase a property knowing that they can do something here in the town center.
Can I respond, Mike?
Yeah,
Mike,
I'm interested.
some of what you're dealing with is not just conditional use, it's septic. So what we don't know about Gertz, because I looked into it, is what she actually has there. and nobody knows what that is, but it's been there for so long that the only way it can transfer over without a septic permit is somebody does a like kind type of business. But the chances are that one way or the other, a septic permit's going to be required. And I think that's the instance with Gertz. I can't answer the others, but it's hard to force an owner of a property to obtain the permits prior. It would likely serve them better if they did.
But what if
Open
it
it
was,
up.
if I understand the question right, if it's, and maybe I'm not sure if I'm understanding what you're saying quickly either way, is it, Mike, is your main concern just the property being able to transfer, like Gertz being able to transfer to another hair styling business, or being like basically like to like on the permit? Like if you have a conditional use to do X, that someone who bought that business could continue to do X rather than to change it, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem.
Right.
That's not the case right now?
Right, like in part, I think there's levels as you have identified.
So, okay, so I can give you a kind of breakdown. This is similar to what I've told a number of people who have, or is the same information I've told a number of people who have inquired about this property. So Gertz currently has no permit authorizing that its use, but that is due to the fact that its use as a hair salon was happening before we had a zoning code, and therefore it is essentially grandfathered in without it. There haven't been any complaints, violations recorded, or any other issues, and it hasn't changed hands, and the use hasn't changed either since, like in the time that Underhill has had a zoning board, a set of zoning bylaws that apply to such things as the use of a building or a particular parcel. Now, if that were to change, if the use or the development on that property were to change along with the ownership, or let's say if the people who own it now decided to change it up and wanted to do like a retail store or something like that, they would have to come in for a zoning permit, and that would have to go through whatever prescribed process that accompanies that type of permit that they're asking for. So for some operations, that would be conditional use. For others, it would be a site plan review. And for others, it would be a simple zoning permit application administered by my office. The only way that commercial activity could continue on that parcel without having to go through any of the things that I just described was if the use was identical to the use that is currently existing without a permit. So if they wanted to change up no amount of employees, no amount of chairs, and just keep going as it is, then the town wouldn't have an issue with that. But anything else would require a zoning permit. I hope that kind of answers some of your questions.
Okay, so
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
no, sorry. So let's say that would be kind of like in all cases, any of the businesses that would be currently running, if it were to transfer to a new owner, the new potential owner could count on running the business as is,
Yeah,
as opposed to it being with the owner and then dying with that, you know.
Yeah, generally speaking, there are a few exceptions, like home industries and home occupations don't necessarily run with the land, but generally speaking, yeah, a use like that, like would run with the land and to the new owner. That doesn't necessarily, and Lee brought up wastewater, so that's important. I think Lee made a good point, because what I was just speaking to was purely the town's zoning, like Underhill zoning laws. The new owners may need to do some kind of state permitting for maybe it's a different use, maybe it's the same use. Everything I said doesn't necessarily, account for whatever the state's regulatory scheme is. So, yeah, so there may be other considerations, but I can't really speak to those.
Where would you look in the zoning regs to separate out which businesses do run with the land and which don't?
That's a good question. I believe that it's under the specific use standards,
Okay.
or under DRB proceedings.
Okay.
And we can look at that in the bylaw review. And it's probably worth doing.
Something.
Yeah. I'll add in the case of a non-conforming parcel like Gertz, where there isn't a current septic permit from the state, then I was speaking with a state wastewater expert about this a few days ago, and she told me that there's basically a process of issuing and recording an affidavit that can sort of issue basically a what's the word, a provisional permit for wastewater capacity in cases where there's no way of knowing what the capacity is, because of the lack of documentation or permitting, in cases like this. And, that's pretty common. It's Vermont. The state only took over wastewater permitting in 2007. So up until then, it was really just the prerogative of local towns. And there were also a bunch of loopholes where you didn't even need a permit if you had a large enough parcel and stuff like that. So really being as there are so many parcels that fall into that category here in Vermont, the state's way of doing it is having a couple different sort of processes of certifying or recording an affidavit stating prior use, and then using that as a basis for an assumption of wastewater capacity going forward for permitting purposes.
They grandfather it.
They grandfather it. They just say, basically, we don't know exactly what this, we the state don't know what this is because we have no record of permitting or plans on file. You, the owner, same deal. But you want to change up the use, or you want to sell the property, and we want to have some record of wastewater capacity for future permitting. What they do is they have the owner sign an affidavit that sort of records what the use has been under their ownership, and then the state has a series of multipliers that they apply to that. So for like a beauty salon, it's like the assumption is if they have one chair, then they had, I think, 150 gallons per day, and then that's sort of added onto by numbers of employees and stuff like that. So there's some simple arithmetic that they apply to the statement in the affidavit, and then that serves as the basis going forward.
Is that sort of answer your questions, Mike? And it sounds like this is something we're going to dig into as we go through the bylaws a little bit more too, to make sure it's consistent for all the different sorts of businesses.
I guess, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, thanks for answering as much as you did there. And I think, so that's part of it, the question. And the other is just that open thought that how do we make this, easy for these business transitions or attractive or whatever would augment our town center, as opposed to putting up roadblocks where, let's say, buildings would go into decline, businesses go away, or the people who are running those businesses go away, and then we just end up with something that does not infuse life into our town center.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're going through all our zoning regulations and just sort of like updating them. So we're adding that to the list as something that we'll make sure we're looking at.
Yeah. And also, obviously, this because you're on the line right now. These meetings are warned in advance, publicly available. If you've got an idea or anything in particular that you want to share, please do. We would love to hear the guidance and ideas from folks, especially in the flats, where right now there's no board representation from anyone living in the flats, and that's definitely a lot of the sort of statewide initiatives happening right now as regards land use would have their biggest effects in village centers like that. So I'd love to hear from folks who are experiencing life in one of those village centers.
So are we talking about, let's say a person has some, say this beauty salon, and then the use is dropped and a new owner comes in, and then are we saying that, okay, it used to be a beauty salon, now we want to reactivate that, although it's been inactive for a certain
after
number of years.
A period of latency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's something that would work, actually. I don't know.
Yeah. That's
The
a
state would probably get involved in that also.
Yeah, I assumed we were talking about a current business that
Try
was
to do it right now.
Yeah.
Gert ought to do that with the state right now.
Yeah.
Somebody's still using it. Somebody still comes in and cuts hair like once a week.
Mhm.
So it's still
Yeah.
getting used, but
But
that's
if
a good point.
It seems to me like anybody buying a building like that would want to have an engineer look at the property to understand what the potential is before you, and the seller would typically give the buyer or potential buyer approval to do that, because it's really kind of worthless without the knowledge of knowing what the potential is, I guess.
It depends on what use they want, like an office,
Yeah,
they probably wouldn't have to change much.
but it's basically, there's a word, worst case scenario or best case scenario of replacement.
That's
So
for a failed system, it's best case.
best case
Base case,
replacement, right? Yeah, so, I'm not totally sure, I went through this one time, but I'm not totally sure what that means. It means that
It means they can't fail you. So like if, let's
Right.
say,
unless it's been vacant for 20 years and it's
That would be
dilapidated, it's
different.
just an empty
that
lot.
would be different, yeah.
Yeah,
So if a house or a business has a failed system, you can't be denied a new
a
system.
new permit.
It's your home or it's your business. There's a best case fix
Hmm.
is what they do.
But you couldn't buy something like that and turn it into a 4-unit apartment unless there was a capacity on the lot.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. So,
So somebody's gonna, more than likely, somebody's gonna do some septic exploration there.
right,
I don't know what he's asking.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think more than what it can handle right now.
right.
Well, it goes back to that topic of needing a community septic
Yeah.
system.
We'll get to that in a little bit, in fact, actually.
Okay, well, unless Mike has anything else, then maybe we should, go, the other addition to the agenda is Boris has been kind enough to express interest in joining us. And I circulated around his, letter of interest and his, resume. So I thought maybe we could, if anyone has questions for Boris or Boris has questions for us, we could do that now, and then at some point we could go into an executive session
Yeah, yeah. for
and
sure.
vote to send, whether or not to send Boris to the select board.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a question. Where'd you move from?
You'd like the answer to Chicago.
You're kidding.
Ah,
I hear you're a Chicago guy. as well.
Yeah, you're kidding. Where?
Yeah, no, I'm originally from Joe Davis County, which is up.
Yeah, Galena.
Yeah, that county, and I lived in Chicago for 18 years, I think,
Whereabouts?
and all over. I lived in Ravenswood, I lived in Evanston, actually, I lived in West Loop.
Oh my gosh, I was in
I
Old
look-
Irving Park. We won't talk too much about Chicago. But
Yeah.
like I wasn't.
Some people are asleep already, but anyway,
And I moved
Beverly.
I moved in 2019 as well. It's crazy.
Welcome to Vermont. What a
Thank you.
change.
Thank you. That's a big change, yeah. It really is.
Smiling though, that's good.
No, good. I mean, I would not have wanted to have been there during COVID. I mean, that would have been a nightmare. There's so many more opportunities here to spread out, you know?
My wife and I joked we'll never, because we moved here June 30th of 2019, we'll never get another decision right that right. We're done. We know.
Yeah, right.
More ways than one.
More ways in
More ways
real
than one.
estate. And so we moved here, our daughter was, we have a young kids, our daughter was going into kindergarten, so we started school in Vermont here.
Okay.
My son's younger, so now he's in first grade.
Okay. Cool. Wow. Well, I'll
Yeah.
see a bunch of other Chicago.
Okay, yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions for Boris about his letter or resume? Or?
No, I read it. Thank you. I'm excited that you want to be on the board.
Do you have any questions?
You know, I said in one other meeting earlier in the year. and
Yep.
I think I covered it then. I'm good, I think.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking just from a flow standpoint, maybe we'll just do an executive session like the last 5 minutes of the meeting or
Yeah,
something,
love
so we
it.
don't have to shut off the recording and turn the recording back
I think
on.
that's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll just have like a little executive session at the very end where we take a vote to you know, because the next step would be you'll go into the select board and they'll ask you questions for like 2 minutes.
Right.
Bob will probably ask you, who's your favorite baseball team? And
Answers, Red Sox.
Context clues on that one.
but yeah, so you're welcome to hang out the rest of the meeting, obviously. or- Yeah, cool.
Then I'll scram and you guys will. do a
Yeah,
little short
yeah.
thing,
Yep, and then we coordinate, we'll coordinate select board with you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Did you have anything you wanted to say before we move out of the?
Okay. Actually, I remember some of the names, but
Oh.
Yeah, we should go around.
Nick, David,
Lee.
you were here, Lee, you were here before,
Yeah.
Val, I heard, yeah, and
Bart.
Bart, okay. Sandy and
That's
I'm
Carolyn.
Carolyn.
Potentially
Comes back.
Oh, okay.
Back.
And, you know, okay, that takes us to, if there's no other public comment, that takes us to, oh, I had one quick thing. Do you know, you may not know the answer. I see all these articles on 7 Days and VT Dig about all this stuff happening in the legislature on housing. Because if you don't see T gonna do like after whatever gets passed, then I haven't passed anything yet.
Yeah.
Will there be like an educational thing, or it seems like there's a lot of action around housing right now?
Great
And I'm just
question.
curious if we'll be getting,
Down in Montpelier?
yeah, there's so
Well,
many,
it's
just like
S100, I got it.
dueling bills, and I honestly, David, you might know way more than me.
Well,
I just,
looked
there's
into
so
it a
much.
little bit. There's a bill S100 and it's, I don't know, about 40 pages long or something.
Yeah.
But it's not all new. It's, you know, they just give you the whole section.
Yeah,
And there's change here and there and so on. So I don't know whether it's something that's going to pass this year, whether it's going to be changed, or I haven't really digested it either. So there are some things that they're
S100,
thinking
did you
about.
say?
S100, yes. 100.
are you volunteering to be our legislative update?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll go through it and point out what's
Awesome.
going on there and try and keep up.
Thank you,
Keep an
David.
eye on the
What
hill.
they're doing
Yeah.
down there in Montpelier, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank
Sort
you.
of like that, doing that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I think that takes us to our planning and zoning administrator update.
Yeah, happy to give it. And I will just piggyback off of what David was saying. I'm on the listserv for the Vermont Planners Association, and we have a fellow named Alex who gives pretty much daily updates from the session. And actually, it's really a group of people who do it, but Alex has been one of the big names. And right now, it's sort of a suite of proposed changes to Vermont statute, but some of the highlights are there's an attempt to legalize two-family or duplex houses anywhere in a state where a single-family home is currently allowed. Another one is to mandate that towns and cities allow for up to 4 units per acre in areas that are currently served by municipal water and sewer.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that one's going to be contentious because not even the Vermont League of Towns and Cities supports that as it's currently written. Because there is a certain amount of discrepancy between all of the various, designated growth centers, designated village centers, neighborhood development areas, zoning districts that overlay downtowns, and actual areas where the infrastructure exists, as well as water, sewer, and light districts. So, you've got your usual the thicket of regulations and designations that come along with municipal planning, and that's kind of it's creating a lot of edge cases that makes it. I think they're kind of making it unlikely that the way it's currently written, a broad stripping of municipal regulatory authority in those geographic areas. I think that's probably unlikely to pass as it's written. But I think that there is general interest in some kind of fairly robust, regulatory scheme, like statewide regulatory scheme, to simplify and liberalize the land development in like downtown neighborhoods, specifically in the areas served by sewer and water.
Is there anything in the bill about non-sewer and water stuff? Like, is there anything that would affect Underhill?
Yes. So the other big one is Act 250. The current text, I believe, changes, and I'm still kind of wrapping my head around this because it's such a complicated law. But basically, the law, I think it's the 1055.
Yeah.
That's the shorthand. Yeah. there's an attempt to make it, I think, 25, 5, 5. So the 10 or 25 refers to the number of units built.
Within a
And-
5-mile radius within a specific district.
Yeah, exactly. So
Within 5 years.
within 5
Yeah,
years,
right.
yeah. So
Now, what was that again? I'm sorry.
So Act 250 regulates what comes into play if someone has developed more than 10 lots
Oh, yeah, okay.
within a
yeah.
5-mile
One
area
person.
within the past 5 years.
yeah, and so
And then Act 250 just adds a huge burden of cost.
And time.
and time.
Yeah.
They want to make it 25 years.
Yes, and so there's debate whether or not that is necessary, because there are some people who point out that there are assert that there is not enough data showing that Act 250 is indeed the thing holding up development.
Oh my
There's
God.
debate on that. You know, I think we all have our opinions on all, I think we all have our opinions on all of these things. So I'm just trying to present this as neutrally as possible. There's also debate on whether or not that is a blanket rule that applies well enough to the whole state that we would want to make it a blanket rule, and whether or not there should be a difference in if it should apply only to rural areas, and if so, what's a rural area, and what about, units
But
that
aren't
fall
they
in
also
between?
considering getting rid of the 5-mile limit too?
Yes, that's up for debate.
That's worth getting rid of.
And then another one is,
I don't even get that.
and then there's a handful of other sort of like little exemptions and riders that would try to sort of parse that away from, it would where a lot of these change, a lot of the exceptions that are being proposed for a lot of these proposed changes apply to towns that have no zoning code. So state law, more stringent state laws would presumably prevail in those towns. But if you have a zoning code and you want to control development in your town, perhaps even liberalize it, then these laws could be seen as taking a hold. That's kind of the basic framework. And like David said, I don't know if there's any hope of something like this happening this session. We're at the first half of the biennium, so there could be, this could be the sort of thing that gets debated on and then refined over the course of the year with time for study, and then reintroduced during next session. Currently, I would say it's probably more likely, but we will see. So that's the Montpelier side of things. Moving a little more locally, I had a wonderful conversation with Linda Blash, who is the new planning and zone, or my equivalent of town planner for Jericho. She started back in November. And a few weeks ago, I went over to the town offices in Jericho, met some of the staff, and had a great conversation with Linda. So I figured I'd note a few things from that, because some of them have some, I thought you might be interested, and I think some of them have some real local implications. So we'll start with the thing that's most interesting for everyone, I think, wastewater. Jericho has restarted, or maybe never even really stopped, their project of some kind of shared municipal wastewater system in the Riverside Flats neighborhood. So they are working with an engineer, I can't remember who, I think it's Du Bois and King though, to study, they're in the preliminary engineering report feasibility study phase of this. So basically, they're looking at the high level stuff, assessing need, potential capacity, potential growth, just a really big sort of like desktop review of it all. So they are doing some surveys to residents, let's see, they've got Tom Brown from the state who is kind of helping out with that. I asked, I told Linda, we've talked about this here on the Planning Commission a little bit. We were kind of hoping to hear from Jericho before we made any more concrete decisions about wastewater. Nothing has really been, concrete has been proposed. And I said, given that one of the things that's come up a number of times with the Planning Commission is when wastewater is proposed, is that we all know it's a shared village. Town line goes right through it, and most of the development and potential for development is on the Jericho side. So I think people have expressed some very valid concerns about whether or not a wastewater system on purely serving the Underhill side would be worth it, and if it were, whether or not maybe a collaboration between the two towns would be a better option if we were going to go down the road of wastewater in the flats. So I chatted with her about it. She said, I'll talk to the engineers. The engineers said, listen, we'd be happy to sort of like take some data from Underhill and what they can provide and maybe kind of run the numbers a little bit, see what we come up with about, basic feasibility and high level costs and procedure. So the other day I went through the files, pulled out some of the information that the engineers were requesting and sent it over to Linda. So they will be looking at those in the coming weeks.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would we have to come up with the funds to fund that?
Not yet. First question I asked was, this doesn't cost Underhill anything, right? Like we're not going to be on the hook, because I definitely don't have the authority to sign us up for that. So, and I was assured, absolutely not. This is something that Jericho's study it can pay for, at least this initial, high level sort of stuff. So we'll see what they come back with, basically. But in case anyone wants to know exactly how many single family homes are within the designated village center area on the Underhill side of the line, I can now tell you. 17. Yeah. So let's see. So that's going on right now. I don't think there's any real action that the commission needs to take.
Wait, you only came up with 17?
Yeah.
Now what does that?
I was gonna ask.
So what does that include? All the way down to Poker
No.
Hill Road?
No. It's a bit of a funny boundary, but I lacking any more, concrete boundary. I just went off of the designated village center, which is also a shared designation with the town of Jericho. And that's a state, we've talked about this, a state designation for village centers that give people living in those properties and property owners special tax incentives should they choose to apply for them, mostly with historical homes and infrastructure and stuff. But it's a nice, those lines are generally drawn to the sort of walkable edges of villages, the traditional village centers. So I just use that as a proxy for the village center itself. It took, I think I started counting at like, I think 423 Route 15. There were a couple homes and businesses along that. They were excluded from the village center boundaries, so I didn't include those. But I just went through the listers cards and the zoning files to pull up whatever data I could on bathrooms, bedrooms, estimated, capacity, that sort of stuff.
Does it
But
go
we're-
past Meadow Lane?
No.
It's very narrow. It's just Route 15.
It really
No, I
is.
didn't mean into Meadow Lane, but as the cutoff.
No, I know.
So does it go to the fire station?
It does. It does. It's weird. It goes to the fire station.
Or but not to Park Street?
Yep, Park Street
Yeah,
as well.
right.
Yep, Park Street, Depot Road.
Okay.
And I noted there may be some new development on what is now Route 422, Route 15, what used to be 16 Harvest Run, or the remainder of the Jacobs parcel. So, but the proposal for those shows those being serviced by their own wastewater. So, so they're aware that there is growth projected for that area, but not within the actual boundaries of the village center as they're currently drawn. And so far, any planned projected growth is supposed to have its own wastewater capacity. So, just documenting what was there. So we'll see what they turn up. I have really no idea what to expect. So.
Neither do they.
And again, this would be a quote for a feasibility study. This is just, they're doing like a pre-feasibility.
They're doing the preliminary engineering report, which is it's essentially a feasibility study according to it's using the state's language for a feasibility study for specific to wastewater systems.
I'm pretty sure it is Du Bois the King, and I think it's Graham Hagan that's also
Yeah. Okay.
in charge.
Cool. So that's that for wastewater. We'll see what they turn up. I will keep updating us. What's up?
So where does it go after this first round? Do they decide to hire Du Bois and King to do the actual design?
Surveying and design? I don't know, actually. I don't know the full process.
Yeah.
What I've been promised is that that this information will yield us some basic, assessment of the feasibility of tying in Underhill to the process. And I think hopefully we'll get them weighing in a little bit on sort of maybe a basic cost benefit analysis of like, okay, well, because these homes are clustered on this road, this is how much roughly, we've seen projects like this cost in the past for installing, infrastructure or something like that. And yeah, so I'm not entirely sure what it will yield. It'll be better than, I think, just speculative, and it'll be a lot lower cost in terms of staff time and potentially town money than like starting our own process.
Yeah.
So,
Did she tell you
yeah.
anything about the Tate's involvement in this? Were they interested in being a part of it, or
I mean, as far as, not specifically, as far as I know, there's.
Tetro has been involved with it in the past,
Yeah.
when they were doing it before. It
Yeah,
sounds like
yeah.
they're picking up where they left
I think they're picking up where they left off. I don't know how involved Tetro is in the actual planning, but I believe that they've expressed that he'd be willing
Put his word
to
in, yeah.
use or sell some of that property for the sewer system, yeah, for any mounds or leach fields that need to be installed or whatever. So, and just to be clear, I think that when we talk about shared septic in here, we're really, no one's proposing like lagoons like down on the lake or something like that. We're talking about,
And just before Jeff
underground.
Village on Upper Valley goes, you mean like that?
we're talking, so far, all I've heard about has been underground, disposal. So yeah, ground-based disposal. Yeah.
So in comparison, how big is Jericho's designated village center? The reason I'm asking
yeah.
is if Underhill does grow, what percentage of their feasibility study and proposed septic would the Underhill portion take compared to the Jericho portion?
Well, I
Just
guess,
thinking it's such a confined area where it's like the sidewalk extends further and there's like the whole Park Street extension that
right.
could be tied in.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell because, I mean, I'm just not sure how they calculate those kinds of contributions, those shared contributions. I mean, if they were just going off of, let's say we were designing a system with Jericho that was just intended to replace what was there and didn't account for either town's growth, then it would be a pretty easy split. You would kind of just go off of the capacity needed by each section that it would service. But I think it starts to look a lot more like calculus than arithmetic once you get into the projected growth, because like you said, Jericho is a lot more potential for growth in terms of land area and perhaps like usable soils for a septic system or larger mixed use development, whereas the Underhill side of the flats is a little bit, it's smaller. It has wetter soils. It's a little bit more spread out. It has fewer public facilities and not as much ambitious stuff planned in the near future. So I'm not exactly sure how they would, what methods they would use to estimate future growth, because I don't think that anyone's proposing we install a system that simply replaces the current use. I think the idea would be to create a system with 10, 20, 30% more capacity so that there could be densification, or we could add public facilities or businesses or other wastewater intensive uses in that area. I think unfortunately, thank you. We're not going
What is
to,
that?
I think,
You
know
see
an
it?
awful
This
lot
is the
more until we
village
hear
center
from the engineers.
Underhill versus Jericho.
Yeah, I can actually pull that up on
Well,
our
what are
plan
we
analysis
looking
sheet
at?
down there earlier.
Yeah, we should.
Well, you can see the line right here. This is Underhill. This is
Just see the
Jericho.
yellow block.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it up on the screen here.
Tetro has 15 acres in there.
And I
Yeah.
would assume like the development of Jacobs would rather tie in than build.
I think if that were,
We wouldn't
If
be
that
able
were an
to
option.
expand anywhere, other than right there. We only have that anyways.
so, thank you, Sandy. I forgot that we have the planning atlas, of course, I was just using it. So, up here we have, on the screen, we have the planning atlas. Here's that town line.
Oh my gosh, that's all we have.
So this section here is all of that. And, a number of these parcels, this is a cemetery, this is a post office, on a giant parcel.
I have a super dumb question. How hard is it, to the extent people are interested in this, how hard is it to expand a village?
Oh, it's, it's very simple request, but the state ultimately makes the decision. And it would be, I've actually already looked into this a little bit. It really just depends on where you're expanding it to. But they weigh heavily the historic part of it, because a lot of the point of the village center designation is to assist property owners who own historic homes. So what I've been told, I chatted with the state planner about this, I've been told that they're somewhat disinclined to push to expand village center boundaries to include recent growth, and definitely not to include projected growth, because that's what I thought about when I was asking them. I was saying, there's some people who want to put some affordable housing in there. Would there be, knowing that is, proposed and might happen, and we have this designation, this village center designation renewal coming up in August, would we be wise to draft you guys a new map that showed the new parcel with the projected growth on? And they said that's really not how this works. It's really just to, it's really to sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for, to document and then to assist, what owners of historic properties, in these village centers. So Tetris property is this big one right here.
You know where it is.
But it goes down Raceway and includes that whole development, which is not that old.
It also has frontage on Park Street and Route 15.
Older than we think.
There's an awful lot of opportunities through there.
But it doesn't have Ray's house or Roscoe's or any of those.
That's true.
So the big takeaway here is like coordinate with Jericho, but that doesn't really impact that many properties in Underhill.
It would, I mean, I can pull up my spreadsheet, but basically we're talking about, several businesses, 2 auto shops, 2 beauty salons. We have a couple home businesses and Poorhouse Pies Bakery. All of those businesses would be affected. Then we got 17 single-family homes, and then several multifamily homes ranging from duplex to 4-unit buildings. And I think that's a total of 23 units in all of those. So
Wait,
we're
so
talking
it's
about
17 and 23?
And
So,
then,
yeah.
40, and then the businesses,
Units.
and then the
Yeah,
businesses,
yeah.
and then a few businesses.
and then a few businesses.
So we're at 40.
Now we're talking
That's
about-
more substantial than 17.
Yeah,
Where are you
17.
coming up with 17?
Yeah.
17.
I counted them.
I should have mentioned that earlier. Sorry. Yeah, that was
17
that was
properties.
so.
What's that?
Nope, 17 single-family homes. There's more parcels than that.
So like we're talking, it's a good number, like 45 or something.
I
And
would
it's
say,
a lot of older ones where those septic systems may fail soon, so it's still very worthwhile.
That's true.
Yeah.
Also, a number of these larger homes offer, especially older homes, offer a great opportunity for renovation into a duplex. In fact, there's one that's already kind of like that, but I'm not really sure if it's actually being used as a duplex. So so I'd say that there is like a sort of a logical argument for exploring septic, even just in this limited area here. The cost and benefit argument is its own separate thing, but the logic of have infrastructure available to tie into for those failing septic systems, I think prevails. The other thing I'll add is that having that capacity allows a number of other sort of aspirational bylaw changes that we could do to actually have the effect. So we could, for instance, or you folks could recommend 1/4 acre lot minimums in this area, and that would theoretically allow people to have smaller lots, higher densities on those lots, stimulate growth, et cetera, but without an actual wastewater system to service all those new units, then it might be just cost prohibitive, and the bylaw wouldn't actually be worth passing. Same thing with business development.
Have you guys done soil testing? What are the mound systems? Is that what's
No.
going in?
No, she's talking about the Jacobs Field and affordable housing. If you go deeper, there's gravel substrate. And so there'll be community septic, so there'll be 2 that will service the 8 buildings, yeah.
Oh, so we have a little mini
mini
shared
community,
system. Okay,
yeah.
proof of concept. Interesting.
And they're not mounds?
But they're gonna leave half of it open in the field, right?
Well, there's a lot of wetlands.
Right.
Yes.
That's just gonna, so it's
Yeah.
only on the upper half over towards.
Yeah,
Parkers.
right. It's
Yes.
not the whole field.
No, I know. No, I know. Well, you can't put the septic in wetlands.
Yeah.
They won't let you do that.
For all those here, and anyone following along at home, stay tuned. I think tomorrow, I should be putting up the sketch plan exhibits and application, and sending out warnings for.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so,
Come on.
we can, we'll have a lot to talk about when that is out. So, any other questions about wastewater? My conversation with Linda there. I've got a few other items from. that
Takeaway for us
conversation.
is just stay tuned.
Yeah, and we can probably chill on taking any of our own initiatives on wastewater, at least in the flats, until we hear back from Linda. And, yeah. So, although if someone wanted to talk about wastewater in the center, that's probably an interesting conversation. And that also leads me into another thing. Linda was telling me that she heard a rumor on the street that some of the folks at the range may be interested in adding some housing up on this side of the range, housing that would be located fairly close to Underhill Center. So that's
At the end of Range Road or?
at the end of Range Road.
On the range itself?
On the
The
range
guards
itself.
will
Cool.
be, yeah, oh,
That's the thought.
selling the land.
I'm totally lost. Sorry, I obviously understand what the fire
I don't
range. Are
think
you
they're
saying the
selling
government's
range.
selling off?
They're gonna put
That's
it
something
on
they're
board.
looking at developing.
Uh,
To build housing for.
For their own
Yeah,
troops.
Yeah, the troops and employees, yeah.
A lot of them live down off of
Used to be a
Ethan
whole
Allen
town.
Road there, like
Who
these
owns
monks
the
and places.
housing, the government?
Yes.
Yeah, they could use
So
that.
it's for
There's already.
soldiers or it's?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, guards.
Probably be like
Yeah.
married housing.
Oh, got it. Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's all military housing. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Evidently, they've been having issues finding wastewater up there. This is somewhat speculative, so I've got a call
yeah,
out to.
12,000 acres,
Yeah.
yeah. Might have to pipe it away.
I'm gonna leave that to them to figure out.
Yeah,
I'm
really.
interested in knowing more about it, so I'll be reporting back in on that when I make contact with the folks.
You're
I have a
probably
call
gonna
into the
say-
public affairs officer
Nick,
there.
I wouldn't think that our zoning would have any effect on that
No.
range at all.
I think there are some broad preemptions that would.
They could do whatever.
Yeah.
You don't
yeah.
think the government, US government cares what we think?
You know that guy in Westford with the big fist in the air and the finger raised?
I do think it is probably a good idea for us to have contact with people who are doing land development up there, though, to the extent that it's like, the housing, businesses, roads, that sort of stuff. Just given the potential for, increased traffic or
Well,
something
that-
like that through this village. So, I'll be checking with PAO about that. The other thing that Linda brought up, I think that we could probably, well, 2 things. One, looks like Jericho is moving forward on extending the sidewalk from the Jericho Market up Route 15 to complete that run of sidewalk
So you
down
don't have to
Route
cross the
15.
street.
So you don't have to cross the street or to go down Park Street and then cut through the.
To where,
back.
to Park Street?
From Park Street down to Jericho Market on the east side of the road. Yeah, so that's in the works. Also in the works potentially is something kind of cool. I just thought this was interesting and inspiring. Jericho's thinking about putting in some kind of bike pedestrian multi-use path either on or paralleling Route 15 to allow a connection between Riverside Flats and whatever the village is with the school and the mill. I always forget which one that is. It's one of their like.
Jericho
15 villages.
Elementary. you mean?
Yeah. Is that
Jericho East.
Jericho?
Right.
What's the name of that village? Jericho Corners, Jericho Mills,
Yeah, Jericho Corner.
Jericho
Yeah.
Corners. Okay, so between Corners, not the one with the country store and the Snowflake
Yeah.
Valley sign, but
Yeah.
the other one with the mill
Yeah.
and the elementary school.
Well,
Yeah,
that's pretty far. They're gonna.
Yeah. So there was a lively public hearing about this. They're already down the feasibility study, and they're onto the local concerns meeting, which happened a few weeks ago at a planning commission meeting in Jericho. And that was, so a couple of designs were proposed. One was basically a slight narrowing of Route 15 with a multi-use path along it, just from village to village. And the other one involved the old railroad bed, which does not have a right of way, but it does have the physical infrastructure of a bed that is used as an informal trail on private land. The idea would be to sort of provide that right of way, build it out as a path, and then have it connect to Raceway Road, and then have Raceway Road be sort of a de facto bike path. And I think that would involve the construction of a bridge over the Browns Trace as well. So
Are they trying to get state money or something?
I think
ARPA? Maybe they're ARPA
I think it's the only way that they're going to, the only way that they'd be able to do that.
Well, it'll be
So
interesting to see what the like per, I don't know what the right distance is, but per quarter mile or whatever cost is. It would be informative for Underhill if Underhill ever wanted to look at doing it.
that's exactly why I brought it up. I mostly bring this up as not really anything that we have to take action on because it's someone else's town, but more just because I think that it's something that we all could probably learn from, and you might just be interested in it anyway, because it's going to be an ongoing process, and there's going to be some more hearings and some more meetings and stuff like that. Yeah.
So this would be not a bike lane on the road, but a multi-use path.
Multi-use path.
Next
Yeah.
to the road.
Yes, exactly. I don't know how.
What's
I
the
don't-
multi-use? Who else is gonna use it? Walkers?
Walkers,
Like,
people
isn't there-
with strollers,
There's so many parcels they have to go through.
there are a lot.
Process of getting through every one of those parcels is gonna be crazy.
There's I think most of the
Isn't it called
proposals I've
eminent
seen
domain?
involve narrowing the lanes and shoulders a little bit and shifting the median, the center line a little bit to make
Oh, I see what you mean.
create room on one
Eminent
side.
domain.
Interesting.
Because there's a right of way.
We're not
Because
used
there's
to
an
that.
existing right of way. Yeah,
So you can just steal 2 feet from each side or something.
yeah, exactly. So that's that for Jericho.
Sorry, just before we leave your stuff, so just,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about planning commission priorities here then. So
Sure.
obviously zoning's a big thing we're spending time on. Question is, given what we all know about what Jericho's doing now with the village center, is pursuing something with wastewater in Underhill Center something the planning commission wants to spend time on? Or do we want to sit and wait and see what happens with Jericho and sort of learn through that? Or I'm not advocating for, sounds like I'm advocating for that, I'm not, like, just asking. Do people have thoughts?
We'll see what they come up with, right? The Jericho study, because we're going to be piggybacked on that. They're going to look at Underhill. Du Bois.
Yeah, when I say study, I think we're going to get information along before any formal study is published. Like along these processes are so drawn out and complicated that there are a lot of opportunities for sharing data along the way between like where they are now, this early stuff, and the actual formal publishing of the report. Because the publishing of the report involves a bunch of votes with the select boards and planning commissions and choosing a preferred alternative and all that sort of stuff. So the publishing of the report is basically synonymous with the approval of the plan that the report recommends. So along the way, there's going to be a bunch of other data generated and shared with the public. And I think that during one of those, it's safe to say that during one of those moments, we'll get some information about, what a collaboration might look like in terms of involvement and cost and actual possibility for use.
Would your recommendation be, before we look at anything else with wastewater, whether it's Underhill Center or whatever, that we wait a little bit and sort of
Yes.
play through this with Jericho and
Yes.
learn? And
Yeah, the information I gave them was really pretty basic. Anyone could have found it with a couple hours of digging around, and I don't think that they're going to get anything super detailed out of it. I think it's really just a sort of just a rough estimate of feasibility and potential for the systems for the towns to sort of share a system. And given the tight timeline Linda hasn't promised me when they'll get it back, but given the tight timeline that this happened under, like, I think that it'll be safe to say that it'll be a pretty fast turnaround on some kind of results. So we all can wait, like, a couple of sessions. I think I should have something to report back.
Oh, well.
I
Well, I
hope.
can wait.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm like, where, anyway? My question was, where?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Where?
not, yeah.
Where would you put it?
Well, I think it would mostly go on the Jericho side of the.
Yeah,
of the
why
line.
would they let us do that? Why would they give up some of their density to us? What would we give them in turn?
Well, once it get around to actually putting it in, at that point, it would probably
It'll
be
be
a
a shared.
sharing of funds of some sort,
Sharing of funds,
proportionate to the amount of use.
density also begets density. So having a town that is densifying on one side of the line of a shared village, their growth could be hamstrung by having the neighbors right across the line, refuse to, or not refuse, just to simply not disagree and not share some kind of common goal. So having some kind of uniformity in or common goal in terms of development goals for that village is definitely in Jericho's interest for just getting their own goals established.
Yeah, I think it's in the interest of Jericho to actually bring us in at this point, so that we get kind of in the picture and in the end be sharing the cost.
Yeah, and the water system that flows into that whole area is on Underhill property. We conserve that water district, and that's what they're going to need for any kind of wastewater system too. Right?
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the basic logic of it. But I guess we'll have some more details on it fairly soon. So I guess I'll be reporting back on those.
Thanks, Nick. That's awesome. That's it. Yeah. Is there anything else on your list or?
No, that's
over to
really,
the.
Great update, thanks.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exciting, actually.
Yeah, I think we could probably move on to the bylaw
So-
stuff. I'll grab the actual.
Can you just, I think you had mentioned in your email, you kind of wanted to lay out how you had done this.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, I saw what you inserted comments.
Yeah, so I I'll pull up the PDF here. I went through this where a number of people, Brian primarily and myself occasionally have been noting the changes to the bylaws that this group has recommended and voted on. So the document that I circulated it is a PDF version of our regulations, our current regulations, with comments and strike throughs, just kind of basic text editing to indicate, that reflects the work that has been done. I probably missed some stuff.
No, but I looked at it and my first impression was, gee, here's 295 pages, my God. But actually, it's not that case. You just have to go all the way down through it to the last section of 30 pages,
Right.
which has the comments in it. So,
Right.
so it's not quite as overwhelming. Maybe we're already done that, but
Yeah, so
it put me off at first.
I know everything was
Think you pretty
crooked
much-
after a while. But
Yeah.
did you notice that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The
I think it caught my attention.
Pulling the
I didn't
pages.
pay
Yeah.
attention at that point.
And I figured, knowing us, we were only going to get through the first 10 pages anyway.
How do we proof this? The thing I was thinking about was, how do we proof this against the master? To your point, as we go, do we just like keep the master copy as we go? Like we start back on, we start back on page 1, basically, of the zoning regs?
Well, if we look at it again, we're going to come up with more things that we want. I started looking and reading and I'm like, wow,
Is that
that could be changed.
Is that good or bad?
Probably good, but
Yeah.
but it was personal opinion stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't like consensus.
okay.
Well, we want to eventually separate the accessory dwelling changes to comply with the state. Keep that as a separate element to put before the voters eventually.
Yeah, and I think we're talking about pulling the trail stuff to go with the ADUs too, since that was done.
Okay.
Well, and then do everything that's not with the ADU.
Yes, yeah.
In a separate section.
Although we do now have basically, I think, unless I'm misquoting Brad, from my conversation with Brad, we basically just need to set a deadline for ourselves of like September or something, Nick, where whatever's not done
Mhm.
gets shuttled, because we want to get in the next town meeting, basically.
Yeah, well, so I actually
Well, we
was
need to get
chatting
to
with,
the select board to then get to the next meeting.
so I was actually just chatting with Brad about this, and it's
Yeah.
actually probably easier than you think. So to do a simple bylaw amendment, the town can call a special town meeting. And apparently that's done quite frequently. And so what we could, and the purpose of that town meeting would be so that voters have a chance to vote individually on a slate of proposed bylaw amendments that have already been drafted and approved by the planning commission and then further approved by the select board. So there's already been hearings. So when we get to the point of the special town meeting or election, like regularly scheduled election, then we've got to, just working backwards from that, we've got to have a select board meeting to approve everything we've done. And then we've got to do the work of drafting it and then approving that, sending it to the select board.
And also hearings.
And yeah, and hearings accompany that. That's part of the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
So,
part of the time.
yeah, it is. So,
feature. Yeah.
so I think I think I need to talk to Sherry about this, and it would probably be good to have Kale or some other municipal legal expert duck in, but just from what I understand about the process is something that we can potentially get going on as soon as now. And so what I was going to suggest is basically what David was articulating was that we just pick a handful of things that either need to be changed because they are out of conformance with the state law, the state statutes. For instance, ADUs, our language is not in conformance with the state statutes, and pair that with anything else that needs to be changed for like grammar or spelling or anything else like that, utterly uncontroversial stuff. And then work over the next couple sessions to
Didn't we do that with Andrew?
draft all that stuff, have the proper hearings, send it through the select board, and either get it on a regularly scheduled election or hold a special town meeting to pass those, and then return to the work of doing the more aspirational, prescriptive bylaw amendments that have also come up as part of this process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like we make progress that way. I guess the only thing I would lobby to add to that, besides the legally required stuff, is I would feel, maybe no one else would, maybe people disagree, but I would feel bad that the most proactive group who kind of came to us and said, they almost sort of started this whole process in some ways, the trail stuff. I would feel, unless other people disagree, I would feel bad sending other stuff out without all the changes we worked on based upon their feedback.
We could have two items on the ballot.
Yeah.
Like we could have one, we have two bylaw amendment proposals on the ballot. I mean, when I say bylaw amendments, I mean, keep in mind that I'm talking about not just necessarily one word or one line or something like that, but a proposal to change part or parts of the bylaws. So we could have one bylaw amendment proposal consisting of a package of a bunch of stuff that's sort of just housekeeping, oh, this is out of line with
That's
state.
a good idea.
We misspelled public, we all remember that one.
In case the trails were controversial, then the one could get passed and the other one.
Yeah, exactly. And then the separate one would be this sort of suggested set of,
Okay, cool.
That's
I like
kind of
that.
how I would propose we go about it. And then, and then I think that also, if we wanted to do that, then it would leave open the question of, okay, well, there are all these other great ideas that have come out of these conversations. What about them? And I mean, that would just be something that we could either deal with later as a group, or it's something that, with a little preparation, we could probably, scare up like a municipal planning grant, and then hire a consultant to do it for us, basically.
So should we set
Or maybe work on some of the questions that the Development Review Board might.
Or maybe work, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to hire a consultant for. I don't want to do it myself.
Yeah, because dealing with the accessory dwelling units, it's all through this whole thing. So it's it's a little bit of a coming up with an organizational principle of this thing that makes it compact and readily accessible to the public. We're gonna have to work on that a bit, I think. And I have some ideas where we might be able to try and compress it a bit so that it's not just, okay, now we'll go to page here, and now we'll go to page here, and page here, and page
I
here.
know it's conceptual
Yeah.
rather than.
Yeah.
Sure, the DRB would appreciate that.
I think it would.
So just picking up on what David said, almost just for our purposes, so what do people think? Like, do you want to say we want to try to have this done in by June 1st or something like that? And this is how we're gonna, like, I'm just trying to understand the process for myself. Like,
Yeah.
are we basically going back through from page 1 with 3 things in our mind, like ADUs and this and that, and then
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna,
think so.
okay.
Yeah.
So what are
ADUs,
those?
trails, and what's the other
Well,
thing?
we could go to the description of the ADUs in in the section of general regs. And then you can say that these apply in this way to all the different districts, basically. Change this through districts 1 through 7, and that way
That is
we
actually-
don't have to go down through each district. Okay, now in District 1, now in District 2.
Right.
To say these are all carried through, basically. So
Yeah,
we'll have
yeah.
to compress it.
Okay.
So that's the beginning idea anyway on this.
That's a good idea.
So should we
We should get that done and out of the way.
start with
Yeah,
that?
I like to get that.
To give it some no's that we know we're changing, that
Yeah.
are
I agree.
right down through each zoning district.
So what I'm seeing is we're at 7:15. We still got to do an executive session.
Well, we're not actually gonna get, my whole goal as of like 20 minutes ago was in my mind was that we just figure out what our process is gonna be to start this next meeting.
Yeah.
So what I was going to suggest is, in pursuit of that, why don't I chat with Sherry about the process for what it would, to get a sense of what the timeline would look like for undergoing this process, and then chat with Kale and maybe the league, the folks in the league, about how to write a bylaw amendment and like what actually goes into that. And
What do you want us to be prepared for next meeting though?
I think I can get all that information together. So what I would love it is if you guys could prepare to do what David was just talking about, and actually knowing sort of the goals and
How to fix them and so that it relates to all the different districts that it's in.
Yeah.
I can work on that.
Yeah, you put a lot of time into it already.
and just
I'm interested.
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I have one question, since before you go, the page 20, wait a minute, what page is it? Oh, come back up. Page 4, where you made one of your first, page 5, permitted uses, and you crossed out associated accessory uses and structures.
Yes.
On the permitted uses.
Yeah, why did we cross that out?
You have to see the note.
Because I think it would be better, actually. I had a little note
Oh,
on
it
that.
says replace with
Where,
ADUs, accessory structures and accessory uses.
that,
Okay.
well,
Now I
I
understand.
don't know if we want to get into the
No, the note, I didn't know I
nitty
should-
gritty of it, but I have a suggestion for
That's
that.
what that's for.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
I didn't
When
know.
we get into the
I
nitty-gritty.
just noted
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they would look.
So next week we'll start digging into
Next meeting.
all that stuff. Next meeting, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. No, it's actually, it could actually be, is it a 2 or 3 week?
I mean,
I
yeah.
think it's a big one because of the way because of the way the weeks fall. We'll have 2 weeks off.
Yeah, this is the second Thursday in March.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So.
Right.
So that's actually, Lee, you raised a good point here. I didn't really want to mess around with the Word version of this, so I just
Okay.
used the PDF. It has limited text editing tools. The replace text one is really stupid and hard to read. So basically, I made all my corrections by striking through in red anything that is being replaced or eliminated.
I didn't understand the little chat box. If you
Yep.
clicked on it.
And the little yellow
Makes so much more
comment
sense.
next to it.
Wait, I was clicking on that and nothing was happening.
Oh, no, it's not coming up? Oh, okay. Well,
Is that me or?
that just means you get to write in your own.
Yeah.
No, not you, Roy. Uh-uh.
The little yellow box has the,
Yeah, that's good, that's good.
Yeah.
Just name it.
Yeah.
properly. Yeah.
That's right. It's a faulty computer.
I'm so confident with the computer. Oh my God.
So this is that. If anyone has I'm I'm very new to this whole bylaw review stuff, so if
I think you
anyone
did a
has
good
any
job.
suggestions
Yeah,
on
it's
a
great.
better tracking mechanism, I'm all ears.
Oh, I thought
That
that was
seems
good.
ideal.
We'll see. And then, yeah, that's about it. I don't know if you guys made it to it, but I did put in, we've only gotten to page like,
I know.
geez, like 30 something, 40 something. So I just scanned just an image copy of everything that had notes for it
Right.
and attached it on the back of the PDF there. So
Yeah.
if you want to see straight from the source there, then that's in the PDF that I put in the hearing packet. The other thing is, like I said, I'm just looking over David's shoulder here. I know that I'm not the only person, this isn't the only place where all of the suggestions are. So you have notes that are not reflected in this, please email me and I can update it.
Oh, okay.
Those
Okay.
would be side notes because except for one meeting where I was gone,
Yeah,
I was the one who kept the notes and I put them all in there.
got it.
I think
Okay.
David took them the next meeting when you weren't there.
Hmm.
These are all
But I'm
the
sure
tabs
there's
for all the
other
different-
comments or else maybe I didn't capture something correctly
Everyone get
too.
together.
Yeah, I just recorded everything that was written in on here,
Together
so,
with this if you want it.
and yeah.
Or you
and I did
better
that
on your
one,
own.
so.
Cool.
I usually work alone.
I think we might need
No,
to,
I understand.
well, I was thinking about this after I said it. I think we might need to pop off the recording, do executive session, and then just pop back on the recording for 30 seconds to officially adjourn. 'Cause
Yes.
I'm not sure what the rules on that are, but that seems
Yeah.
like the safe way to do it.
Probably, yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna-
That is what you have to do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It seemed weird otherwise.
I know, no,
Yeah.
you have to go into executive, come out.
And then go, okay,
Thank you, Caroline. How do you spell your last name?
Gregson, Gregson.
Thank you.
I don't know, it seems like you're getting kind of engaged in the planning commission again.
She's been there.
Fascinating, and the time off was
Cool.
helpful, but it's interesting to see a whole new group
Yeah,
working.
I
I mean,
said
it's not a
David.
whole, no. You guys were all on before David.
All right.
Going into executive.
Well, thank you. It was nice meeting you. Thank you, Boris.
Yeah.
Thank you, Boris. Yeah, for sure.
Your
Thank
input
you.
was very
Too
nice.
bad all your expertise.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I will endeavor so can we get a motion to go into executive session? Lee, is there a second? Second. Bart, all in favor? I don't know what's on the screen. Aye, everyone's in. Okay.
Stop her.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I would make a motion that we ask Nick to convey the results of our executive session to Brad, convey our recommendation to the select board with respect to the new commissioner position. Can I get a second? All in favor? That's the worst motion ever. Oh, I don't know. All right, a much more important motion. Can we get a motion to
Adjourn.
Roy's got it for a second. David beat you, Bart. All in favor?